Hey everyone, I am back. And if you like drawing a lot of cards and draining your opponent of all hope and joy, then I think I have just the deck for you. Previous viewers of the channel will know that we tried Akesha Control in the past, and while we had some great games and the deck was alright, we also enjoyed a fair bit of misery ourselves. This deck takes things back into control by leaning further into control elements, and it has been performing very well. The deck runs 2 of the rare Cad Gear, and it is one of the most important cards in the deck. That is because it is the core win condition of the deck, looping Celebration Days and winning with Small Step Giant Leap. Celebration Day is actually kind of the wrath of God of this game. It may not seem it, but it's what stops the momentum of your opponent. Day 6, when you hit 8 mana, is the pivotal turn, and if we just survive to Day 6, we can often win on the back of card advantage and repeated Celebration Days. These card draw spells not only help us find our game plan, but also act as spells that we can cast with Cad Gear in a pinch. Sometimes the play is just to tap Cad Gear to draw a card, while playing units to block lanes. The one-off Conjuring Seal is secretly one of the most important cards in the deck. We often draw through our entire deck and recycle it, and Conjuring Seal is the key for being able to do that. Any control-like mirror matches, the seal is critical. Additional spells in the suite are the removal spells Off You Go and Banishing Gate. The former helps us make sure our opponent doesn't pull early lanes, and helps get rid of troublesome anchored units. The latter is most useful for dealing with problematic permanents, like our opponent's own Cad Gears. We rarely care about big things like Hydrocana. If we're at 7 mana and they are dropping 1 character, we've probably won. The final spell in the suite is Kraken's Wrath. This can often sweep a board, and when played for free with Cad Gear, feels great. If we are able to stall enough with After You, it's very difficult for our opponent to win 2 lanes through a Kraken's Wrath. And preventing double lane wins is the name of the game. A one-off of Sakurabaru and one-off of Isatok both perfectly prevent this. They're also good curve leaders into the tower. They can sometimes bait out a hard removal spell, and if that removal isn't enough for opponents to win the game on, they no longer have it for our tower. Another way to prevent double lanes is just with big dudes. A 4/4/4 for 3 mana does the trick, and on the backside, the Alchemist often acts as a 1 mana After You. Our first unique also acts as this slot. Very similar to a rare Alice, this Otis Trooper saves us a rare slot and gives us a way to win lanes on the front and a flexible backside. Then we start to get into characters whose purpose is both blocking lanes and giving us utility. Baba draws a card, and we want the rare Baba because having power to block lanes is more important than anything in our characters. Flamel is a big body, but can also return key spells to our hand. Early on, this may mean a 1-2 punch of playing Flamel and a returned magical training. Later on, this can be a key piece for making our celebration days seem infinite. Hathor serves a similar purpose, with his support ability being able to return key cards or spells that the tower removed fleeting from. Additionally, his body's great. With 3/3 for 2 mana, he provides great value on blocking half of the non-starting lanes in the game. Our second unique follows in the theme of being able to return important cards to our hand. Also in a pinch, its support ability lets us keep around undercosted 4/4/4s. And the final unique, another copy of Moon Caregiver, keeps this support ability, and mostly just acts as a cheap body with above average stats. Finally, the last card in our deck are 3 copies of the Common Tooth Fairy. We try to save our Sabotage for threats to our game plan. Mere good bodies don't concern us a lot. And we prefer Tooth Fairy over Spycraft because we don't want our tower or celebration days to land vulnerable in the reserve. And sometimes the body's relevant. That's the deck. Let's jump into some games, and I think we're going to make our opponents cry just a little bit. Okay, we're starting off playing against Sigismar, one of the heroes that gave us a lot of trouble last time we played Akesha. But I think that this can often have a much better matchup that really kind of forces them to have sticky note seals at exactly the right time, otherwise they're pretty much going to lose. Our hand starts off with some pretty top-heavy cards with 2 of our 8 cost spells in hand. But they are key to how we win this game. So even though we're not going to be able to do anything with them for a long time, we're absolutely going to keep them in our hand. Putting these into the reserve and then having our other tower on the bottom of our deck is a sure way that we can lose. And it's much better just to lose some early lanes, knowing that we're going to be able to stabilize on day 6. It's also a little sad because Kraken's Wrath is another great card in this matchup, but we just can't keep 3 things that we can't play on the first 2 turns. So we need to put back the Kraken's Wrath, and really we're looking at the Cadgiran Alchemist and the Baba Yaga. The Baba Yaga will draw us a card in addition to probably preventing a lane win, so we'll go ahead and put the Alchemist back and keep our 2 big cards plus the Baba Yaga. Opponent opens up with an Ortis Cadets on the right, which means that we can just play our Baba Yaga in either lane. We go with the one that they will always get a token in. And we draw a Hather, which there's a 50% chance that this lane reveals something that will make a really good Baba Yaga plus Hather play, since Hather can block a lot of power in here. Unfortunately, we end up on water, but we know that the next time that they advance on this Hather will now be a good play. We draw a small step, and off you go. We can put back one of our small step giant leaps. We don't need all three, but we do generally like to have two. So if we draw another one early, we'll probably try to keep that for the late game. We know we're going to want to try to block this left lane, and probably let them win this right lane, since it'll put us into good Hather territory, and we don't have a lot of tools to stop this anyway. We also don't, necessarily want to get sabotaged with Ortis Spy right now, so we'll go ahead and play the Baba Yaga instead of using Akesha's After You effect. They play the Ortis Cadets, though, which does put us into a position where we're currently losing this lane unless we do something else. Frog Parents puts them ahead on the right, and from here, it was probably right to use Off You Go on a token, which would win us the lane and block them, and save the Hather for starting to block this lane in the future. Ideally, I'm able to use this Hather with the support ability on the backside to return us something critical, which means using the front side for blocking lanes is often better. That being said, we did take a different line here and played the Hather to the left, perhaps kind of thinking about that this Off You Go could stop an even bigger threat or play from our opponent. The outcome is the same, though. We advance and block on the left, and they advance on the right. And this Hather will still be good from reserve to block this lane on the right. We draw Banishing Gate and Hather. We still want to keep these two things. The Gate could be quite good against something on their side, especially like a Grand Endeavor, which isn't always played, but it's one of the things that I think we really should be wary of in this deck. I definitely want to keep the other copy of Hather. It's already on a good lane, and the support ability is really good. So unfortunately, we're actually going to send the Off You Go back here that we kept in hand. Opponent opens with a Ortis Carrier. We can't really effectively stop this left lane, and so now we can either play Hather from hand or Hather Reserve on the right side. In order to hide our hand a little bit, and because it's not likely that we want to return something next turn, it's more something we'd want to do with like the celebration days, we go and play Hather to the right side, preemptively blocking any lane here. And he tries to secure the left lane in case we have something big with the Frog Prince, which luckily is totally fine with us and just uses a card because we didn't have anything to stop that either way. We draw another Cadgear Tower, which we actually put back. It's a little bit of a risky play. If they have a Sticky Note Seals, we may be in trouble. In hindsight, I may keep that in my hand to have backup there and just try to play a little bit more conservatively with the lanes. Especially this first Banishing Gate isn't necessarily something that we need. It's good for stopping the tower, but I'm not sure that we need to get rid of this Ortis Carrier. Our opponent plays a Frog Prince, and we go ahead and play our Ortis Trooper to the right side, which will give a good chance of us being able to advance on this lane, and the Hather is still a threat for coming into block. Opponent actually drops an Anubis, though, which will permanently get rid of our Ortis Trooper, and prevents 3 power over here, threatening to advance. The Hather, though, blocks that, and as long as they don't have a 1-drop, we at least stop them from advancing. And they move 1 closer to victory, but we just need to stop. Well, actually, we don't need to do anything. As long as we get to 8 mana and don't get Sticky Note Seals, we're in a great place, because the best they can do here is double advance, which will set us up for Celebration Day Cadgear going forward. So here we can put back one of the Flamels, save this Banishing Gate, ideally for something like a Grand Endeavor. I don't think that we should be worried about this Ortis Carrier being a threat, but our opponent opens up with a Ortis Spy on us, getting rid of our Hather, which is a little sad, and we feel pressured and a little awkward to do something, which leads to us Banishing Gate this Ortis Carrier. In hindsight, I don't love this play. I think I should have just passed and let them go. But that's what we did. Opponent drops down the Frog Prince, takes both lanes. and we start looking towards the next turn and getting our action going. Here, we draw another small step and a Khadgar Alchemist. As I said before, I don't really want to put two of the small steps into the reserve, so I'll go ahead and put the Alchemist into the reserve, especially since now we're going to be trying to chain celebration days for the rest of the game. Here we can open with After You. Opponent plays Spy from reserve, and then we drop the tower. And as long as we don't get sticky note seals this turn, which we do not, we can continue on. Opponent plays a Rune Scribe, though, which from reserve can let them draw a card, preventing or potentially letting them dig towards some of those scary cards. Otherwise, it's just making bodies, and we no longer care about bodies because Celebration Day negates the entire board from now on. Here we get a Baba Yaga and a Banishing Gate. I'm a little wary of getting sabotaged here, and so I want to keep this Baba Yaga in case I need to draw into some action, which means that with everything else here, I kind of have to get rid of this gate, which is a little scary because it puts me down two of my gates in case he has a way to threaten us with the Grand Endeavor, which could allow him to advance. And we feel good about the move that we made, though, because our logic was right. They have the second Order Spy, they get rid of the Celebration Day, and now we're in a good amount of trouble. Baba lets us come in, draw one card, and it's a pretty big hit, getting Conjuring Seal, which is going to let us see 3 more cards. We're at least winning this right lane right now. Our opponent is definitely putting on a lot of pressure in the left lane. They only need to win 1. Rather than, do a useless Flamel here, we play the Conjuring Seal, hoping to draw into a critical card like Celebration Day. We're not there, but we do hit Magical Training, so we have 1 more look. Opponent plays Kikoba Legion Commander on the right side, which means they're crushing both lanes, and we need to have a big hit here, which we get. Celebration Day off the top. We only had 15 cards left in the deck, so the chances that we saw our second one by now are pretty good, and luckily we found it. This lets us play the Celebration Day. We're going to end up with 2 extra cards in reserve, which will keep the Celebration Day, since that's obviously key to what we're doing now, as well as the other Conjuring Seal, which is going to let us dig more for anything that we need. The opponent only has, I believe, 1 Spy left at this point, which is generally the only sabotage that these decks play. So we're getting close to be able to not care about that. Here, we draw some cards. The Isatok is actually pretty interesting. It's another way for us to potentially advance, and we can make them play in a way that they think, we're going to Celebration Day, but we can actually use Isatok to advance this turn, save a Celebration Day, and overall just end up in a stronger spot because we're playing with their expectations. I do get rid of the Banishing Gate here, which, in hindsight, I really don't like. I kept some Banishing Gate earlier, and I even used one on Ortis Carrier, but Grand Endeavor is like the primary way that we lose at this point. And so keeping that gate as an insurance policy probably would have been better. In hindsight, I'd probably get rid of one of the Flamels, or the Tooth Fairy. The Tooth Fairy is actually pretty good to get rid of because while it helps me get rid of some of our opponent's cards and just makes them play out their cards so I know what they have, really, I don't care too much about the cards in their reserve. I just care if they draw one of the key spells that would beat us, like Grand Endeavor or Sticky Note Seals. But because we go first, we'll go and open up with Flamel, return the Celebration Day to our hand. They play from reserve, which means that they likely did not have the Sticky Note Seals, and we can go ahead and After You without feeling pressured to immediately use our tower. Now, though, they do play out more characters, and we can go ahead and use the Celebration Day, stopping their action, causing them to pass, and letting us finish up our turn with another draw 3. Ultimately, we're not trying to play bodies at this point of the game, so we can go ahead and drop this 1-mana Moon Caregiver. Our opponent will go first. We'll see if they open up with their third Sabotage effect. They do not, but they do go to the left lane, which maybe we can pressure them in a way that would force them to go hard on the left and then lose because of Isatok. So here we can sabotage with the Tooth Fairy on the right on their cheapest card, force them to play out here, and because they played this first, hiding the card from their hand, it's not going to get big, and our Isatok is likely big enough to take the lane. So with that, we can just play a stall card. Magical Training's a nice one because it means that even if they killed the tower, for example, that we could actually play Celebration Day with our mana. But we can also just play Flamel, which is going to add a ton of power here in combination with the Isatok. And this makes it so for the majority of characters that are available to Ortis, including an Anubis, they're not going to have enough power here to win the lane with our Isatok. So they play a 5/5/5. We throw out Isatok over here, take this lane, and now block this one. And now we are just 1, 2, 3 advances from winning. And if we draw Small Step, which we did with our free 1 mana Magical Training, we now have those 3 in our hand, because the first Small Step will lose Fleeting with Cadgear, and we'll be at exactly 12 mana to win the game here. So, a Sabotage effect could mess us up here a little bit, but not actually screw us. And if we open up with using the tower, then a Sticky Notes also won't be enough to stop us. So rather than using After You off the bat, we'll just immediately Small Step with the tower. If they sabotage us, we can go for a different game plan, like using the Celebration Day. But if they allow us to play our Small Step from reserve, then we will now be threatening lethal. They play a carrier to the right, so it doesn't seem like they are going to be stopping us. We play the Small Step from reserve before they get a chance to sabotage, in case they were just sandbagging it for some reason. And it's good that we went for the win here, because they did have Grand Endeavor in hand, and we got rid of all of our Banishing Gates like a big dummy. But we have enough. We got the other Small Step in hand, just enough mana, cast it, and the Sigismar is taken down, like he should be. Okay, next up we have a game against Afanas, the other most played Yzmir hero. Similarly, we want to keep the Bastion, the tower in hand, as always. It's key to our game plan, and we don't want our first one going in reserve. We don't love putting 2 Small Steps in the reserve, but it kind of feels like we may have to. Afanas has Small Steps of their own, and if you let them get ahead on lanes early on, then they can close out even through the Celebration Days. So it's really important that I have things to stop early lane victories. So I want to keep this Ortis Trooper, and I want to keep this Cadgear. And similarly, I want to be able to stop them from having characters continually take over the board, so I think I need this Banishing Gate, which means the one-off Sakurabru is also going back. But, there's an argument for keeping this Sakurabru. It's one of the few things that can push them off of Small Step victories. But we just have a lot of top end in this hand. So we do put it back, and we go with the Trooper, Gate, and Tower. Opponent opens with Bravos Blade Dancer, which we can likely block with the Ortis Trooper, unless they use like a helping hand on it, or they cast 2 spells this turn, which isn't super likely, and in fact would usually put them in discarding things in the reserve. They do have a Magical Training, though, and even follow that up with a Studious Disciple. So 3 1-drops for opponent, so they are able to get a lane this first turn. Unsurprising. Afanas starts off aggressive. We draw Off You Go and Kraken's Wrath. We really want to keep the Off You Go as a cheap way of handling this Bravos Blade Dancer right now before a helping hand comes on it. And we like the Banishing Gate because it's like a permanent answer to things, which would mean that we're putting the Kraken's Wrath back, which we like the removal, but it's a little expensive for where we are at right now, so we're going to keep the cheaper options. To prevent any sabotage value, we do go ahead and open up with the Ortis Trooper, especially since this is Mountain Water for them. It's going to be effective at blocking things. The Off You Go will also mean that we're answering this, and once again we're kind of responding to their plays well. They play another Blade Dancer, so if they do have the helping hand now, they're probably going to get some value for it next turn unless we can use this from reserve. But once again, we're trading one lane apiece, which is not a horrible spot for us to be in. Ultimately, our opponents need to win 7 points in the first 5 turns, and there's 10 points available. If you double lane each turn, you basically get 2 points. So that means that right now they've lost 2 of those points. If we can just prevent them from getting 2 more points in these opening things, then Tower plus Celebration Day is enough. Now, that does get a little bit more complicated versus Afanas, because Afanas does have the small steps, so we can't just let them get to 6 points and sit on our laurels. We need to try to prevent them from getting every single point we can, because those small steps can come and threaten us. We put that Banishing Gate back. We don't need 2, and they're kind of expensive. But we can go ahead and do the off you go here again before it gets sabotaged and before opponent gets a helping hand on there, which is often the game plan that they're trying to do, just get really cheap, big Blade Dancers continually played. They do follow up with the Baba Yaga, which is going to, once again, get them 1 point. But it means they're only taking 1 lane this turn, and they're unlikely to double lane both of the next turns, so hopefully we're getting to exactly the sequencing that we want. We do draw Celebration Day, so we have our initial combo in hand to be able to slow the game down once we get to 8 mana. And we draw another Magical Training, and Isatok. The Isatok will be, means that we're definitely not going to get double laned. And so we can put back the Magical Training. Here, we can go ahead and open with the After You. There's nothing critical that we need to play out the gate. If they sabotage this, it's fine. And we can go ahead and play the Isatok on the left. Unlikely that they can stop this lane. And if they Banishing Gated this is like the one thing they could do, then that would mean that there's a Banishing Gate not available for our tower. They do play a Beauty Sleep, though, which they can then play on their own Baba Yaga, keeping it around for another turn. Our plan will be to Isatok over here, but the fact that they're doing this means that they're probably going to have a Tooth Fairy or a Spycraft to open up with that's going to get rid of this Isatok. So we'll see if there's anything we can do to handle this Baba Yaga, but at least we stopped this turn and advanced this turn, because it's unlikely we'll get another Isatok. 2 Flamels in hand. We can put one of them back. We still want to keep this gate for getting rid of characters, maybe even the Baba Yaga. But we'll see. They do Tooth Fairy, the Isatok. And now, we could, immediately Magical Training, see what we pull up. We could also Flamel, bring back Magical Training. And that can kind of draw us into an Off You Go or a Hather. We decide to go ahead and Flamel, put a little bit more pressure where they are feeling that they have to play cards and we have a big power advantage over here. And it will draw us this Magical Training, giving us more options for plays this turn. They do play their own Flamel, though, which means that we're not in a great spot, especially with that Beauty Sleep coming into hand. Like, they can do a lot of things. We see what we get with the Magical Training, which is a card that's not going to do anything this round. So they're going to be double advancing here. They'll be 2 away. It's likely that they see at least 1 small step Giant Leap, but hopefully, maybe another one was in their opening hand, which Afanas is not going to keep those around usually early on. They're going to just count on being able to have it for later. So hoping that they put some of those in reserve, or that some of them are on bottom of their deck, because we can't really let them get any more lanes naturally here, because small steps can be such a big threat. So here, we can go ahead and put back the Off You Go, with the idea that we're going to get this tower down, we're going to start casting big spells with it, and one of those may even be Kraken's Wrath to cheat some lanes. We open with After You, see what they have, hope that they don't keep Banishing Gate, which I wouldn't expect them to keep Banishing Gate unless they knew exactly what we were on. But we can play the tower, and depending on what they do, we can potentially use it for a removal spell rather than a Celebration Day. And they do Small Step Giant Leap, so we may just be dead, but right now they're 1 away. But that also means that we can go and use this tower for a Banishing Gate to permanently get rid of this as a character and reduce the number of options that they have to naturally advance on the board. And that's kind of important, because even though we have Celebration Day for days, we do want to get to a point where we're drawing our 3rd Small Step Giant Leap and naturally winning some lanes ourselves, because we basically are going to go super far into the game and deck if all we're doing is relying on Celebration Day. So we need to win some natural lanes, and to do that, we need to get rid of some of their characters. That being said, we, in terms of naturally winning lanes, we can do it either with Alchemist or Tooth Fairy or something, but the Tooth Fairy will just straight up get rid of one of their characters. And, Afanas can sometimes run out of characters, which is one of the ways that you can beat them. So I'll get rid of the Alchemist here. I don't want to like totally run out of Celebration Days or become vulnerable to a single Sabotage, so it's good to keep both. And we can go ahead and start with the magical training just to see some more options. The fact that they didn't Banishing Gate off the bat or Small Step off the bat means that they probably don't have it, and we're safe to see more. And with this, we can actually play Hather and potentially be using the Bastion to play a Kraken's Wrath or Banishing Gate and winning this lane if he does something like Pass. But instead, he plays a Monolith Legate. We can actually use Banishing Gate to get rid of that, because that'll prevent him from getting a lot of value here. Because this is a unique one that's going to draw him cards if he plays like a Helping Hand on it. And it's going to sabotage our really good spells in our reserve whenever we use Celebration Day. So it's a big problem. So hitting Banishing Gate on this feels really good, and we still have the Bastion over here. Which we can actually use with Kraken's Wrath on the Flamel, which will do exactly what we were saying before. Let us advance a lane here. And we're a little bit closer to winning how we need to win. We've gotten rid of a lot of our opponent's characters at this point, and unless he's playing really conservatively with those, means that he may be running out. We put back Tooth Fairy. Even though it does help get rid of some of those cards, he doesn't have anything in reserve right now, which is a little awkward. We're not ready to throw one of our Celebration Days to the wind, and these card draw spells will help us get through to our deck. Plus, they give us bodies to actually win lanes, which we've said is pretty important. Because we are going first here, though, and it doesn't look like from what we have that we're super confident we're going to necessarily be able to block both lanes. I'd rather hedge against like a Banishing Gate this turn and play my Celebration Day immediately. It'll also maybe get them where, since we're first, if they have Small Step, Giant Leap, maybe they'll try to play it thinking that they can still win, but Celebration Day actually blocks that. So I like to play this early sometimes when that's a threat against me, and maybe get them to waste that card. They play Magical Training though. And we can kind of just plan to draw out from here after doing some after viewing. We don't need to be proactive about returning this with the Hather. If they have Sabotage, I'd rather know that they have it and get it out there, since we have another Celebration Day in hand. They are playing characters out, and we'll go ahead and return the Celebration Day, but this makes me think that they're going to have something to keep those around, but they don't. They're probably just trying to stall to see what we're doing based on something else that's in their hand, which is a little scary. We see a third Celebration Day. We don't need all three, but we keep them anyway and put back the Moon Caregiver. In hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. I would have kept the Caregiver. Again, especially since it's clear at this point that we need bodies to win. We can go ahead and Celebration Day, though, and just keep things moving a little bit. Nothing exciting in our hand. We'd really like to see some card draw spells like the Conjuring Seal from here, though. But we don't mind that they're Tooth Fairying here, sending a lot of cards to their reserves. Actually, they're going to Beauty Sleep, which, again, is fine. We have plenty of Celebration Day in hand. We were resilient to that Sabotage. And so no matter how many Spycraft or Tooth Fairies they see that try to stop those, we'll probably be fine. We put back the Alchemist, which I think... we basically we still want to not be vulnerable to like a single Spycraft. The card draw spell is critical, and this is our only Small Step. So it's basically Tooth Fairy or Alchemist, and Tooth Fairy helps them run out of bodies, which may be even more important than the body of the Alchemist itself. But we can go ahead and open up with our small step on our biggest mana spell so that if they do have the Banishing Gate, we get the most mana value this turn that we can. Plus, again, the small step stuff I talked about before. They do have the gate, so it's good that we kind of use this now, and we can kind of use the rest of our mana to dig with Conjuring Seal and things like that. We go ahead and use Flamel to return the seal, just so that we get as many uses out of this as possible. We're trying to see as many cards in our deck as we can. And we'll go ahead and leave the Celebration Day and seal in our reserve going into this next turn. Since the tower is gone as well, we're also trying to find our second tower, because that's going to be key to potentially getting back into infinite stuff. But we have a lot of mana now, so we can also just cast like Celebration Days naturally. And we're also only 2 cards left in deck, so we're about to loop through everything and see more stuff. But that also means that they're getting a little closer there, which means that if their other small steps are in reserve, they're going to start finding it again. And also, if they have one more small step in this deck, it's coming up. They open with a Mage Dancer, which we can immediately off you go to prevent any helping hand value. And if all they have in hand is, helping hands and beauty sleeps, and off you goes and banishing gates, they're forced to pass. And it seems like that's what it is. So this Mage Dancer wasn't enough. They don't have small step. And from there, it's just GG. We can play 2 characters in the left and right lane, which is going to get us the double score. And our single small step will pull it out for us. Okay, now we have Kojo. We have 2 Celebration Days in hand. We can get rid of one of these. We don't like to be stuck on one Celebration Day early on, though, so we want to keep the other in hand. Or rather, we don't want to have one just somewhere in our deck and we don't know where it is, maybe on bottom. But besides that, it's a top-heavy hand. We have nothing for the early turns except Magical Training, so we will keep the training to draw a card, which leaves us with either one of the Kraken's Wrath or one of the Flamels. I really like Kraken's Wrath against Kojo because of the token that he gets. It's really good value, so I'm going to put back the Flamel with the idea that this Kraken's Wrath can potentially get me, 2 turns later on. But I think keeping the Flamel is also a pretty reasonable choice, especially since we can play it turn 2 and bring back the Magical Training with it. But we go down, a lot of good cards. Opponent opens with a double lane threaten, and our Magical Training just sees our 3rd Celebration Day. So we're vulnerable. And with this, Conjuring Seal is a critical card in the deck, and we can't really get rid of the CAD gear for the same reason we can't get rid of Celebration Days. But we can make things work with one Celebration Day. And the Kraken's Wrath is, at least going to be something that's going to be played sooner. So we get rid of the 3rd Celebration Day and decide that this is going to be a 1 Celebration Day game, and we'll make it work. We are down Flamel already, though, so it's something to be conscious of. Open up with the After You, though. They get the Isumboshi, and we'll go ahead and just use our turn drawing cards. Expect that we're going to lose another double lane here, but maybe we can see some things that put us in a better position. I often like to think about this as, there's 7 points that you have to win in this game. And in the first 5 turns, there's 10 points to be won. He's won 4 out of 4. So I need to stop him from winning 4 out of the next 6. But that's pretty doable. That's very possible. We go ahead and put back the Muna Caregiver unique. They open up with a Haven Warrior on the right. Here, we'll focus on doing something on the left side, so we'll play the Hathor, which is a great blocker here. They use Intimidation, which we don't really care about. We're mostly just trying to stop them from taking lanes. So with them no longer threatening there, we can just Magical Training to see more cards and try to figure out how we're going to win this game, because they've taken a strong early lead, taking 5 out of 6 points. And we need to stop 3 out of the next 4. We see another tower, and I think that we do want to keep this tower, which means, maybe we keep a Tooth Fairy for sabotage. We get rid of the Banishing Gate just because it's an expensive spell, and we can only do so many expensive spells at this point. But we can after you and figure out how we're going to go about this. They play Axiom Salvager, which is decent value, but at least the Hather will block this pretty conveniently. And our Off You Go can potentially eat this Haven Warrior, which they do pass after playing this, so our Off You Go can eat that, and we can actually double advance this turn while also stopping them. But we're going to end up with a lot of cards in our reserve, but Muna Caregiver can return one to our hand, which will return the Off You Go as a cheap way to maybe trade up in mana with the kind of things that they're doing. Here, we'll likely get rid of the Small Step Giant Leap. We just need more interactive things right now, and we're okay getting rid of one or two of those. And riding pretty thin on our combo against Kojo. But Kojo doesn't have as much interaction. They can't Small Step Giant Leap us or anything like that. There's no Grand Endeavor. But he does, the opponent does Haven Bouncer our Hather, so that's one less way that we can return Celebration Days to our hand. This turn, we're probably going to be trying to look to see if we can't get a Kraken's Wrath to stop the right lane. So with that, if we want that, we don't want them playing a 3-drop. So we'll Tooth Fairy on the left, hitting the 3-drop, and go ahead and let them Axiom Salvager to get another card of value, which turns out to be a common Bravos Bastion. And if they don't have another character in hand, this Kraken's Wrath is going to wipe the right side of the board, and we'll win this lane 1-0. The main thing that I'm worried about at this point is him having like Mana Eruption or some removal in his hand that's going to be able to stop one of these Khadgirs and then sneak through a lane. So we'll see this next turn, especially with us starting with After You. We'll see what we do, but it could be risky for us opening Khadgir and they remove it with a Mana Eruption. We do draw a Sakurabru, though, which is fantastic, because that means that the turn that we play this, assuming that they haven't advanced anymore, they can't win from that position. So we put back the Alchemist, and we're feeling a lot better with this in hand. They open with Bouncer on right. We can go ahead and drop our Khadgir, but they do immediately Mana Eruption that. So we're happy that we kept the other Khadgir. I'm a little worried, though, that he has more of these, though. He shows that one of these was in his Mana Orbs. So there's at most one more Mana Eruption in his deck, though he could have other removal, depending on what he's using his rare slots for. Luckily, his last card in hand is not a 2-drop or less, so he's not winning the game off of that. Because otherwise we did kind of take a risky turn by not opening with the Sakurabru instead. Here, we have a lot of things. This kind of acts as an After You, and we've got cheap spells. I don't want to get rid of this last Small Step Giant Leap, so I'll get rid of the Baba Yaga, which, maybe the Small Step was the right thing to do, but we've already mana'd one, and we are eventually going to need them. But I think, in hindsight, maybe getting rid of the Small Step would have been the play. They use a rare physical training, which means that this is a huge threat that Off You Go at least will be good against, and we can start with like a Sakurabru on the left side and still have the Off You Go to threaten, which we'll use on the right side, preventing him from auto-winning that lane, and now he can physical training if he wants on the left, but that's still only a tie, so it doesn't seem like he's really going to have a way this turn to take both lanes. And unless he has another 1-drop, we'll at least stop him from advancing at all. Here, we'll get rid of the Tooth Fairy. We're now thinking about bodies to block, which I'm not sure is the right thing, because ultimately, we're probably going to be trying to Khadgir this turn, and if that's the case, I'd rather get rid of his Salvager, or probably more importantly, saving it in case he brings up Salvager and hits his 3rd Mana Eruption. But we do get rid of the Tooth Fairy, we keep the Alchemist, We can open up with after use, see what's going on. The Salvager does come in first and brings another kind of potentially scary card, but not one that is scary from the reserve. So glad to see that this isn't in play, but it does mean that he's running a lot of sabotage effects. We've seen the bouncers, we've seen now Ortis Spy. We can stall a turn with the magical training, but that's the only 1 mana play we have, and it's probably going to be the case that we'll need to drop the tower next and hope that he doesn't have this 3rd mana eruption. So we drop it, and he plays Mighty Djinn, so we're safe. We can go ahead and use our celebration day and live another day. Here, we don't need 2 Banishing Gates, but we keep them, and we get rid of the Tooth Fairy. The Banishing Gate can kind of act as a sabotage effect in that it removes a character, though, like Haven Bouncer, and gets rid of it from the reserve. But I probably should have kept that Tooth Fairy because one of the ways we lose this game is him hitting a Salvager and getting rid of our tower. But he opens with Haven Bouncer, which gets rid of our 1 celebration day. And with that, it's pretty good that we have these Banishing Gates, because one of the ways that now we can try to win is by just getting rid of his actual characters, because we can't just win with Celebration Day looping anymore until we draw through our deck with Conjuring Seal. And the power is going to be pretty critical. They do see a 2nd Order Spy, so each one of these is going to be giving 4 power. We're tied on left. We can go ahead and Banishing Gate or Flamel, and we choose to Flamel, returning the Conjuring Seal. This means that he's currently not winning any lanes. He does play Bravos Vanguard to the right, which will be our first Banishing Gate target. We intentionally don't use the tower for that Banishing Gate because we don't want them to know that we have another Banishing Gate available to us. And so, we've shown Kraken's Wrath earlier. We want that to be a card that he's thinking of. And with that, he plays Order Spy, probably trying to over here and trying to see if that is going to be enough. If he played in the left side, I think that we'd be out of luck. But luckily he did not. He played it in the right, which means that the Banishing Gate is going to be enough to stop this from advancing and give us a tie on both sides. Here, we get rid of an Alchemist, trying to get value with these Flamels, especially with us having lost so much so far. We need to keep things looping. We return the Banishing Gate. It's the only removal spell we have available to us right now, and if he sabotages again, we're in trouble. And then we can go ahead and after you and see how he plays. Seeing Magical Training off you go here is nice. It gets us some more stall, lets us see more cards. In general, just lets us move at a better pace. We can even Kadgiran Alchemist on the left here to still be winning this lane. Magical Training, off you go, and Banishing Gate with the tower. So we have a ton of options here. Sorry, this Alchemist would not be enough by itself. But with off you go, again, we still may be able to at least stop and win in 1 lane, which we just need to stop 1 lane this turn. So we open up with off you go on the what do you call it? The Foundry Armor, so that we're currently threatening left lane win. He plays Haven Bouncer. Gets rid of the Conjuring Seal, which is fine. It means that we have the off you go available to us. And we can even play this Ortis Trooper, or again, the Alchemist, and still have this tower to off you go on the right and be winning this turn. Here, I think that I probably get rid of the Ortis Trooper now. The Ortis Trooper is pretty good fighting in this left lane. I'm just very cognizant of my ability to Hather and stuff. The other thing is that actually, he's got 2 bouncers, all of his bouncers are gone, and 2 of his Order Spies are gone. And we are actually threatening 1, 2, 3 Small Step Giant Leap. So unless he has a third Order Spy in hand, or if he opens up with Mana Eruption on the Bastion, we can win with Small Step Giant Leap this turn. They open with Bouncer from reserve, which means that we can go ahead and tower for a small step to see whether or not he has the Order Spy in hand. And if he doesn't have the Order Spy on his next turn, we win the game. Isumboshi is not going to cut it. And that will be enough. That's all the games that I'm going to be covering in depth. But overall, the deck was very successful, and I had a lot of fun playing it. I appreciate you all coming to watch this video. I know it's been a while since I posted, but I want to continue making videos. I probably won't have as aggressive a schedule as I did before, but I want to be trying to make videos once every week or two going forward. I'm excited for the next set, and I'll definitely be making more content as that starts to come up and come out. And yeah, let me know if there's anything else that you'd like to see from my side. And please like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, yeah, I'm Elio. Thanks for watching.